The morning sun cast long shadows across Seoul National University as students hurried to their classes. Among them walked Yuna Park, a quiet girl with dark hair tied in a simple ponytail. She carried her worn backpack and moved like any other engineering student rushing to make it on time. Yuna slipped into the advanced quantum physics classroom just as Professor Kyung began writing equations on the board. She took her usual seat in the back corner where she could see everyone, but nobody really noticed her. This was exactly how she liked it. Today we will discuss theoretical wormhole mechanics, Professor Kyung announced to the class of 30 students. His voice echoed in the large lecture hall as he drew complex diagrams on the whiteboard. Yuna opened her notebook and appeared to take careful notes like the other students around her. Her pen moved steadily across the page, while she nodded occasionally at the professor's explanations. To anyone watching, she looked like a dedicated student trying to understand difficult concepts. But Yuna was not writing down anything about wormholes or quantum physics. Hidden in her left ear was a tiny device smaller than a grain of rice. Through this device, she listened to alien communications from across the galaxy. Radio signals traveled through space, carrying messages in languages that most humans had never heard. But Yuna understood them all. While Professor Kyung explained how theoretical portals might work between distant stars, Yuna decoded a message from the Andromedan sector. A cargo ship full of stolen weapons was heading toward the outer colonies. The ship's captain had a bounty of 20,000 credits on his head. Her pen continued moving as she calculated the best route to intercept the vessel. She would need to leave Earth within 2 days to reach the shipping lanes in time. Her notes looked like physics equations to anyone who might glance over, but they were actually navigation charts for interstellar travel. Miss Park, can you tell us what happens when matter enters a theoretical wormhole? Yuna looked up to find Professor Kyung staring at her. The entire class had turned to look at the quiet girl in the back. She felt their eyes on her and gave a small, nervous smile. The matter would be compressed and stretched due to extreme gravitational forces, she answered softly. Time dilation would also occur, making the journey seem longer to the traveler than to outside observers. Professor Kyung nodded with approval. Excellent answer. You have been paying attention. If only he knew what she was really paying attention to, Yuna thought to herself. As the professor continued his lecture, Yuna received another signal through her hidden earpiece. This one made her grip her pen tighter. The message came from the Galactic Enforcement Council, the organization that hunted the worst criminals across known space. They had a new contract for her. Target designation, high priority. Species, Vexarian. Crime, destruction of 3 human colonies. Bounty, 50 million credits. Yuna kept her face perfectly calm as she processed this information. 50 million credits was more money than most people on Earth would see in their entire lives. But the target was also extremely dangerous. Vexarians were known for their brutal strength and violent nature. This would not be an easy hunt. Her classmate Taeho leaned over and whispered, "Are you okay? You look a little pale." Yuna turned to him with her usual shy expression. "I am fine, just thinking about the homework assignment." Taeho smiled kindly. "If you need help studying, I am good at physics. We could meet at the library later." "Thank you," Yuna replied quietly. "But I have family business to take care of this week." She would be leaving for the outer colonies soon, but Taeho could never know that. Nobody could know that Seoul National University's quietest engineering student was also the galaxy's most feared bounty hunter. The class bell rang, and students began packing their bags. Yuna closed her notebook full of secret calculations and prepared for her next lesson. But her mind was already planning the hunt among the stars. The university library was unusually quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. Most students were either in classes or grabbing lunch at the campus cafeteria. Yuna preferred it this way. She sat at a corner table on the 3rd floor, surrounded by thick engineering textbooks that made perfect cover for her real work. To anyone passing by, she looked like a dedicated student preparing for upcoming exams. Her tablet displayed what appeared to be study materials for advanced material science. but the screen actually showed encrypted communications from across the galaxy. Yuna adjusted her wireless earbuds and activated the secure channel. The familiar voice of Commander Hayes from the Galactic Enforcement Council filled her ears. His words were disguised as a podcast about space exploration, but Yuna knew how to decode the real message. "The target has been confirmed in the Proxima Centauri system," Hayes said in his calm, professional voice. "Designation Vexstar, also known as the Butcher of Kepler Prime. Height approximately 8 feet, weight estimated at 400 pounds. Natural armor plating covers 60% of his body." Yuna pretended to highlight important passages in her textbook while she memorized every detail. Vexstar was not just any criminal. He was responsible for destroying 3 human colonies in the Outer Rim. Men, women, and children had died because of his attacks. The images from those destroyed worlds still haunted the news feeds. "Subject possesses enhanced strength typical of his species," Commander Hayes continued. "Acidic blood makes close combat extremely dangerous. He travels with a crew of 12 mercenaries from various hostile species. All are considered armed and extremely dangerous." The tablet screen flickered, and new information appeared. Photos of Vexstar showed a massive creature with dark, leathery skin and multiple arms. His face was scarred from countless battles, and his small red eyes held no mercy. This was a being who enjoyed causing pain and death. Yuna scrolled through the intelligence report. Vexstar had been spotted at a trading station near Proxima Centauri. The station was officially a research facility, but everyone knew it served as a black market hub for criminals and smugglers. Getting there would require careful planning. "The bounty remains at 50 million credits," Hayes concluded. "Time limit is 30 days. Standard rules apply. Proof of termination required for payment." Yuna saved the files to her encrypted storage and began planning her approach. She would need to book passage on a commercial transport ship. Her cover identity as a xenobiology student would work perfectly for traveling to the Centauri system. "Yuna, there you are." She looked up to see her roommate Sora approaching with her own stack of books. Sora was everything Yuna pretended to be. A normal student worried about grades and weekend plans. They had shared an apartment near campus for 2 years, but Sora knew nothing about Yuna's secret life. "I have been looking everywhere for you," Sora said as she sat down across from her. "We were supposed to meet for lunch an hour ago." Yuna blinked in surprise. She had completely forgotten about their lunch plans while focusing on the mission briefing. This was dangerous. She could not afford to let her 2 lives overlap. "I am sorry," Yuna said quietly. "I got caught up studying for Professor Kim's exam." Sora studied her friend's face with concern. "You have been acting strange lately. More distracted than usual. Is everything okay at home?" "Everything is fine," Yuna replied, but she could see that Sora was not convinced. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" Sora reached across the table and touched Yuna's hand. "We are friends. I worry about you sometimes." Yuna felt a pang of guilt. Sora was a good friend who genuinely cared about her, but she could never know the truth. No one on Earth could know that their quiet classmate spent her breaks hunting the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. "I appreciate your concern," Yuna said with a small smile. "But I really am fine. Just stressed about exams." Sora nodded, though she still looked worried. "Okay, but promise me you will take better care of yourself. You have been looking tired lately." If only she knew that Yuna's exhaustion came from fighting alien war criminals in distant star systems rather than staying up late studying. "I promise," Yuna lied smoothly. As Sora opened her textbook and began studying, Yuna returned her attention to the mission files. She had less than 30 days to track down and eliminate one of the galaxy's most wanted criminals. The hunt was about to begin. That evening, Yuna walked through the quiet streets of Seoul like any other student heading home after a long day of classes. She carried her backpack and moved at a casual pace, stopping occasionally to look at her phone as if checking messages from friends. Nobody paid attention to the ordinary girl in jeans and a simple sweater. But instead of going to her shared apartment with Sora, Yuna took a different route. She walked through older parts of the city where fewer people lived and security cameras were broken or missing. The streets grew darker as she moved away from the bright university district. Yuna stopped at what looked like an abandoned subway entrance. The metal gates were rusted and covered with old graffiti. Warning signs in Korean told people to stay out because of structural damage. Most citizens avoided this area, believing it was dangerous and unstable. She pulled out what appeared to be a normal student ID card and pressed it against a hidden scanner near the gate. The rusty metal slid open silently, revealing a clean, well-lit tunnel beyond. Yuna stepped inside, and the entrance sealed itself behind her. The tunnel led deep underground, far below the abandoned subway lines. Motion sensors activated lights as she walked, illuminating smooth walls that definitely did not belong to the old transit system. After several minutes of walking, she reached a heavy door made of materials that did not exist on Earth. "Welcome back, Yuna," said a calm female voice as the door recognized her biometric signature. "You have been away for 4 days, 6 hours, and 12 minutes. "Hello, Araya," Yuna replied to her artificial intelligence assistant. "I need to prepare for a new mission." The door opened to reveal her true sanctuary. The room was larger than most apartments, with curved walls that seemed to glow with their own soft light. Weapon racks lined the walls, displaying firearms and bladed weapons from dozens of different alien species. Each piece was perfectly maintained and calibrated for maximum efficiency. Display cases contained various types of armor, from lightweight stealth suits to heavy combat gear designed for extreme environments. Some pieces looked almost human in design, while others were clearly adapted from alien technology. Each set told the story of a successful hunt in distant star systems. "Araya, show me everything we know about Vexarian biology and combat tactics," Yuna said as she walked to the central console. Holographic displays filled the air around her, showing detailed anatomical charts of Vexstar species. The AI highlighted weak points in their natural armor and explained how their acidic blood could be both a weapon and a vulnerability. "Vexarians have enhanced strength but rely heavily on intimidation and brute force," Araya explained. "They are not accustomed to opponents who use superior tactics and technology. Their overconfidence has been the downfall of many Vexarian warriors." Yuna studied the information while selecting her equipment. She chose a suit of adaptive nano-armor that could adjust its properties based on environmental conditions. The material was nearly indestructible and provided protection against both physical attacks and energy weapons. For weapons, she selected her favorite plasma rifle, modified with alien technology to fire projectiles that could penetrate any known armor. She also took a neural disruptor that could disable most alien nervous systems without permanent damage, though she doubted she would need to take this target alive. Finally, she reached for her signature weapons, twin energy blades that could cut through virtually any material in the known galaxy. The handles were perfectly balanced for her grip, and the energy fields could be adjusted for different types of combat situations. "Mission parameters suggest a 30-day time limit," Araya noted. "Recommended departure time is within 48 hours to allow for optimal travel routes. Book passage on the next commercial transport to Proxima Station," Yuna instructed. "Use the Mina Park identity with Xenobiology student credentials." "Confirmed. Transport departs tomorrow at 1400 hours. Cover story and documentation are being prepared." As Yuna packed her equipment into specially designed cases that would pass through any security scanner, she felt the familiar calm focus that came before a hunt. Soon she would leave behind the quiet student persona and become what she truly was, humanity's most effective weapon against the dangers that lurked among the stars. The galaxy's deadliest hunter was preparing for her most challenging prey yet. The commercial transport ship Stellar Horizon was exactly the kind of vessel that Yuna needed for her mission. Large enough to carry 200 passengers, busy enough that one more traveler would not attract attention, and slow enough that she would have time to study her fellow passengers during the 3-day journey to Proxima Station. Yuna boarded using her false identification as Park Mina, a xenobiology student from Seoul National University. Her documents showed that she was traveling to Proxima Station to study alien plant life in the research facility's botanical gardens. The cover story was perfect because it explained why a young human woman would be traveling alone to such a distant location. She found her assigned cabin on Deck 7 and unpacked her single bag. The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed and a small desk where she could work on her supposed research project. Her real equipment was hidden in specially designed compartments that would not show up on any scanner. After settling in, Yuna made her way to the ship's main dining area. This was where she would learn the most about her fellow passengers. She ordered a simple meal and found a table where she could observe the entire room while appearing to read a digital book about alien ecosystems. The passenger manifest showed mostly traders, researchers, and tourists heading to various stations in the Centauri system. But Yuna's trained eyes immediately spotted several people who did not fit their official descriptions. At a corner table sat 3 men who claimed to be mining equipment salespeople, but their hands showed calluses from weapons training, not office work. They kept scanning the room and spoke in low voices that suggested they were discussing something more serious than mining contracts. Near the serving counter, a woman with short red hair claimed to be a journalist writing about frontier life. But she carried herself like a soldier and her eyes constantly evaluated exits and potential threats. Journalists did not usually have combat training. Most interesting was a group of 4 men at the central table who were clearly trying too hard to look like ordinary travelers. They were all human, all roughly the same age, and all had the kind of physical conditioning that came from military service. Their conversation was too casual, their laughter too forced. Yuna activated her hidden recording device and aimed it at their table. The device could pick up conversations from across a crowded room and filter out background noise. What she heard confirmed her suspicions. The target was last seen in the Black Market district. One of them said quietly, "Intel suggests he has a compound in Section 12 of the station. 50 million credits split 4 ways is still more money than we have ever seen," another replied. "But this Vexstar is not going to be easy to take down. We go in fast and loud," the apparent leader of the group stated. "Overwhelming firepower before he can react. In and out in less than 10 minutes." Yuna almost smiled at their amateur approach. These were clearly mercenaries who had heard about the bounty on Vexstar and decided to try their luck. They had no idea what they were dealing with, and their crude tactics would likely get them all killed. Worse, their presence complicated her own mission. If they attacked first and failed, it would alert Vexstar that humans were actively hunting him. He might flee to another system or increase his security measures, making her job much more difficult. She continued listening as they discussed their plan. They intended to rent heavy weapons on Proxima Station and assault Vexstar's compound directly. It was exactly the kind of brute force approach that would fail against an experienced alien warrior like the Butcher of Kepler Prime. As the evening progressed, Yuna identified 2 more suspicious passengers. A Centaurian trader who seemed far too interested in human conversations, and an elderly man who claimed to be a retired teacher but moved with the precise steps of an assassin. By the time she returned to her cabin, Yuna had a complete picture of the threats and complications aboard the transport ship. The mercenaries were the biggest problem, but she would need to monitor all the suspicious passengers during the remaining journey. She activated her secure communicator and sent a coded message to ARIA back on Earth. Her mission had become more complex before she even reached the target location. The hunt for Vexstar was about to become much more interesting. Proxima Station appeared through the transport ship's windows like a massive metal city floating in the darkness of space. The orbital facility was easily the size of a small moon, with countless docking ports, communication arrays, and habitat modules stretching in every direction. Thousands of ships from dozens of different species moved around the station like busy insects. Yuna pressed her face to the small cabin window and studied the station's layout. According to her intelligence files, Proxima Station officially served as a research facility, studying the effects of stellar radiation on various life forms. But everyone in the galaxy knew its real purpose as a hub for black market trading and criminal activities. The perfect place for someone like Vexstar to hide. "All passengers prepare for docking procedures," announced the ship's captain over the communication system. "Welcome to Proxima Station, gateway to the Centauri system." Yuna gathered her single bag and joined the line of passengers waiting to disembark. She kept her expression neutral and slightly nervous, exactly how a young student should look when visiting such a notorious place for the first time. Her fake research papers were ready in case anyone asked questions about her visit. The docking bay was enormous, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Humans were a minority here, outnumbered by tall, blue-skinned Centaurians, insect-like mantids, and dozens of other species that Yuna had encountered during her previous missions. The air smelled of exotic spices, fuel chemicals, and something else she could not identify. Station security consisted of bored-looking guards who barely glanced at passenger documents. Yuna's student identification passed through without any problems, and she was officially admitted to Proxima Station as a visiting researcher. Her first stop was the Housing Administration office, where she rented a small apartment in the civilian sector. The clerk, a thin Centaurian with 4 arms, handed her a key card and a station map without much interest. "Research District is in Section 5, the clerk said in accented English. "Botanical gardens are on level 12. Try not to get lost." Yuna thanked him politely and made her way through the station's maze of corridors. The official areas were clean and well-maintained, designed to give visitors the impression of a legitimate research facility. But she could see the signs of criminal activity everywhere. Coded messages written in alien languages, suspicious individuals conducting quiet business in dark corners, and security cameras that had been deliberately disabled. Using her student credentials, she gained access to the research district and visited the botanical gardens. This gave her a legitimate reason to be on the station, while she gathered intelligence about Vexstar's location. The gardens were actually quite impressive, filled with plant life from dozens of different worlds. While pretending to study exotic flowers, Yuna activated her hidden scanning equipment. The devices mapped the station's internal structure and identified areas where security was lighter or non-existent. Within 2 hours, she had a complete picture of how to move through the facility without being detected. Her real breakthrough came when she accessed the station's maintenance records through an unsecured computer terminal in the research lab. By cross-referencing power consumption patterns and waste disposal records, she identified an area in Section 12 that was using far more resources than it should. Section 12 was officially listed as abandoned storage space, but someone was definitely living there. That evening, Yuna made her way to the black market district using maintenance tunnels she had discovered earlier. The unofficial commercial area was a maze of shops, bars, and meeting places where illegal business was conducted openly. Alien music played from hidden speakers, while creatures of every description traded in weapons, drugs, and information. She found a bar called the Void Walker and ordered a drink while listening to conversations around her. It did not take long to hear what she was looking for. "The butcher has been recruiting," whispered a scared human smuggler to his mantid companion. "Word is he's building an army, planning something big." "What kind of army?" The mantid clicked back in its alien language. "The kind that destroys worlds," the human replied grimly. Yuna felt ice form in her stomach. This was no longer just a bounty hunt for a single war criminal. If Vexstar was assembling a force of killers and criminals, he might be planning another attack on human colonies. The stakes had just become much higher than 50 million credits. She finished her drink and quietly left the bar. Time was running out, and her mission had just become a race to prevent a possible massacre. Yuna woke to the sound of explosions echoing through Proxima Station's metal corridors. Emergency lights flashed red in her small apartment as alarms blared throughout the facility. She checked her chronometer and cursed silently. It was only 3 in the morning, and she had planned to begin her infiltration of Section 12 later that day. Someone else had made the first move. She activated her hidden communication device and accessed the station's security channels. What she heard confirmed her worst fears. The 4 human mercenaries from the transport ship had decided to attack Vextar's compound using their crude plan of overwhelming firepower. Multiple explosions reported in Section 12, crackled a security officer's voice over the radio. Unknown attackers using military-grade weapons. All security teams respond immediately. Yuna quickly dressed in dark clothing and gathered her essential equipment. Her carefully planned infiltration was now completely ruined. Thanks to the mercenaries' loud and stupid approach, every criminal on the station would be on high alert. Vextar would know that humans were actively hunting him. She made her way through the station's maintenance tunnels toward Section 12. The sounds of battle grew louder as she approached the abandoned storage area. Plasma rifle fire lit up the corridors, while something much larger returned fire with weapons that shook the entire section. When she reached an observation point, Yuna could see the disaster unfolding below. The mercenaries had blasted their way into Vextar's compound using stolen mining explosives, but they had underestimated their target completely. Vextar stood in the center of the battle like a nightmare made real. The 8-foot-tall alien warrior was everything the intelligence reports had described and worse. His natural armor plating deflected most of the mercenaries' weapon fire, while his multiple arms wielded energy weapons that could cut through metal walls. 2 of the mercenaries were already dead, their bodies torn apart by the alien's brutal strength. The remaining 2 had taken cover behind some cargo containers, but their ammunition was running low. They were trapped and outgunned by a superior opponent. "Fall back, fall back," one of them shouted into his communicator. This was a mistake. We need immediate extraction. But there would be no extraction. Vextar's criminal allies had surrounded the compound, cutting off all escape routes. The mercenaries were going to die, and their failure would make Yuna's job infinitely more difficult. Worse, she could see that the mercenaries carried identification that would link them back to Earth. If Vextar captured one of them alive, he would learn that humans had tracked him to Proxima Station. He might flee to another system or increase his security to the point where even Yuna could not reach him. The station's security forces arrived just as the last mercenary fell to Vextar's weapons. But instead of arresting the alien war criminal, the corrupt guards simply cordoned off the area and let him retreat deeper into his compound. Clearly, Vextar had been paying them for protection. "Section 12 is now under complete lockdown," announced the station commander over the communication system. "No unauthorized personnel are permitted in the area until further notice." Yuna realized she had only one option. She had to eliminate the surviving evidence before it could compromise her mission or reveal humanity's involvement. The mercenaries were all dead, but their equipment and identification were still scattered around the battle site. Moving through the shadows, she waited for the security guards to complete their patrol. When the area was clear, she slipped into the compound and began gathering the mercenaries' belongings. Their weapons, communicators, and identification cards all had to disappear. As she worked, Yuna heard movement in the deeper corridors. Vextar was still alive and now fully alert to the threat against him. Her window of opportunity was closing rapidly. She finished cleaning up the mercenaries' traces and retreated to her observation point. The compound was now heavily guarded, with alien sentries posted at every entrance. Getting inside would require a completely different approach than she had originally planned. The amateur mercenaries had turned her surgical hunt into a chaotic siege. But Yuna had faced worse odds before. She would adapt, overcome, and complete her mission. The Butcher of Kepler Prime would not escape justice. For 3 days, Yuna watched the compound in Section 12 like a patient predator studying her prey. She learned the guard rotation schedules, identified the weakest entry points, and mapped every corridor through hidden sensors she had placed during the cleanup operation. The facility was a maze of converted storage rooms and maintenance areas that Vextar had transformed into a fortress. Armed aliens from at least 6 different species patrolled the outer perimeter, while automated defense systems covered the main entrances. Getting inside would require perfect timing and flawless execution. On the 4th night, Yuna made her move. She entered through a waste disposal tube that connected to the station's main recycling system. The passage was narrow, dark, and filled with the smell of rotting garbage from dozens of alien species. But it was also completely unguarded because no sane being would choose such a disgusting route. Yuna crawled through the filth for 20 minutes before reaching an access panel that led into the compound's lower levels. Her modified tools made quick work of the electronic locks, and she slipped into a storage room filled with stolen weapons and supplies. Moving like a ghost through the corridors, she avoided the guards using her knowledge of their patrol patterns. Her adaptive armor adjusted its color to match the walls, while sound dampeners in her boots eliminated any noise from her footsteps. The deeper she went into the compound, the more evidence she found of Vextar's true plans. Crates of military-grade explosives were stacked in one room. Another contained maps of human colony worlds with attack routes marked in red. A third held communication equipment powerful enough to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems. This was not just a hiding place. It was a command center for planning genocide. Yuna photographed everything with her hidden cameras while continuing toward the center of the compound. Intelligence reports indicated that Vextar kept his personal quarters in the most secure area, surrounded by multiple layers of defenses and loyal guards. She reached the final corridor without triggering a single alarm. 2 massive guards stood outside an armored door, marked with symbols that meant death to all humans in the Vexarian language. Both aliens carried weapons that could vaporize a person in seconds. Yuna waited until they turned away from each other during their patrol, then struck with her energy blades. The weapons cut through their armor and bodies before they could even cry out. She dragged the corpses into a side room and approached the door to Vextar's inner sanctum. The lock was more complex than anything she had encountered before, but her tools were designed to handle alien technology. After 5 minutes of careful work, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside was a circular chamber with walls covered in weapons and trophies from Vextar's victims. Skulls from dozens of different species decorated shelves, while burned flags from destroyed colonies hung like grisly banners. At the center of the room sat a massive throne made from melted starship hull plating. On that throne sat Vextar himself. The alien warlord was even more terrifying in person than in the intelligence photos. His scarred hide looked like ancient leather stretched over living rock. 4 powerful arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. His small red eyes held the cold intelligence of a born killer who had survived countless battles. "Welcome, little human hunter," Vextar said in perfect English, his voice like grinding stone. "I have been expecting you." Yuna felt ice form in her veins. This was supposed to be a surprise attack, but somehow Vextar had known she was coming. "Did you really think you could sneak up on me?" The alien stood slowly, his massive frame filling the chamber. "I have been killing your species since before you were born. I know how humans think, how they move, how they die." He gestured to the walls around them, and Yuna saw what she had missed before. Hidden cameras had been tracking her movements since she entered the compound. Motion sensors had detected her presence despite her stealth technology. Every step of her infiltration had been monitored and recorded. The mercenaries were loud and stupid. Vextar continued, taking a step toward her. "But you are different. You are the one they call Silent Death, the human who has killed so many of my kind." The trap had been perfectly set. The hunt had become the hunted. Vextar pressed a control on his throne, and the chamber began to transform around them. The walls slid upward, revealing a much larger space beyond. Hidden lights activated, showing an arena at least 50 meters across with a domed ceiling covered in scorch marks from previous battles. "This is where I test my warriors before they join my army," Vextar said as he stepped down from his throne. "It is also where I execute those who displease me. Tonight, it will be your tomb." Yuna drew her twin energy blades, their blue glow casting eerie shadows on the arena walls. She had trained for this moment, studied every piece of intelligence about Vexarian combat tactics, and prepared for every possible scenario. But facing the massive alien warrior in person was still intimidating. Vextar was twice her height and probably 4 times her weight. His natural armor could deflect most weapons, and his 4 arms gave him a huge advantage in close combat. Worse, his acidic blood meant that even wounding him would be dangerous if she got too close. "You humans think you are so clever," Vextar growled as he picked up a massive warhammer from a weapon rack. "But in the end, you die just like any other weak species." He charged across the arena with surprising speed for such a large creature. The warhammer came down where Yuna had been standing a split second before, crushing the metal floor into twisted wreckage. She rolled to the side and slashed at his leg with one of her energy blades. The blade cut through his armor, but barely scratched the thick hide beneath. Vextar roared in anger and swung his hammer in a wide arc that would have pulverized her if it had connected. Instead, it smashed into the arena wall, sending chunks of metal flying in every direction. Yuna realized immediately that she could not win this fight using traditional combat methods. Vextar was simply too strong and too well protected. She needed to think like a human and use her species' greatest advantage: adaptability. She activated her armor's environmental systems and released a cloud of dense smoke throughout the arena. Thermal imaging showed Vextar's outline, but he could no longer see her clearly. This leveled the battlefield considerably. "Coward," Vextar bellowed as he swung his hammer blindly through the smoke. "Face me like a warrior." "I am not a warrior," Yuna replied from somewhere in the haze. "I am a hunter." She struck from the shadows, using hit-and-run tactics that confused and frustrated the larger opponent. Her energy blades found gaps in his armor while she stayed constantly in motion, never remaining in one place long enough for him to counterattack effectively. Vextar grew more desperate as the battle continued. His massive strength was useless if he could not hit his target. He began destroying parts of the arena in rage, trying to flush her out of hiding. But every swing of his hammer made him more tired while Yuna conserved her energy. "You cannot hide forever, human," he gasped, acidic sweat dripping from his scarred hide. "I am not hiding," Yuna said calmly. "I am studying you." She had been watching his movements, learning his patterns, identifying his weaknesses. Vexarians were creatures of habit who relied on intimidation and brute force. They did not adapt well when their usual tactics failed. Yuna waited for the perfect moment, then struck at his most vulnerable point. Her energy blade pierced the joint where his upper right arm connected to his torso, severing tendons and nerves that controlled that limb. The arm went limp, and his warhammer crashed to the floor. "Impossible," Vextar snarled as he clutched his wounded shoulder. "This is why your species fears humans," Yuna said as she prepared her final attack. "We do not just fight. We think." The remaining battle was swift and decisive. Without one of his arms, Vextar could not defend himself effectively against her precise attacks. She systematically disabled his other limbs while staying beyond reach of his claws and acidic blood. Finally, the massive alien warrior fell to his knees in the center of the arena. The Butcher of Kepler Prime, terror of 3 star systems, had been defeated by a quiet girl from Seoul who weighed less than one of his arms. "Please," Vextar whispered as Yuna raised her energy blade for the killing blow. "I can pay you more than any bounty. I have treasure from a dozen worlds." Yuna looked into his alien eyes and saw the same fear that he had brought to countless human victims. "This is for Kepler Prime," she said quietly, and ended his reign of terror forever. 1 week later, Yuna Park sat in her usual seat in the back corner of the advanced quantum physics classroom. Her worn backpack rested beside her chair, and her notebook lay open to a fresh page. To every person in the room, she looked exactly the same as she had 2 weeks ago. A quiet engineering student who rarely spoke and kept to herself. Nobody knew that she had just returned from the Proxima Centauri system, where she had eliminated one of the galaxy's most dangerous war criminals. Nobody suspected that the shy girl with the simple ponytail had prevented a coordinated attack on 3 human colony worlds. The 50 million credit bounty was already deposited in her secret accounts, but she would never spend it on anything that might draw attention. Professor Kyung entered the classroom carrying his usual stack of papers and digital tablets. He wrote new equations on the whiteboard, while students settled into their seats and prepared for another lecture about theoretical physics. Today, we will discuss the practical applications of quantum entanglement in long-distance communication, the professor announced. Some scientists believe this technology could allow instant messaging across interstellar distances. Yuna almost smiled at the irony. The hidden communicator in her ear used exactly that technology to receive messages from the Galactic Enforcement Council. But she kept her expression neutral and began taking what appeared to be careful notes about the lecture. Her classmate Taeho leaned over and whispered, "How was your family visit? You missed 3 classes last week." "My grandmother was ill," Yuna replied softly. "I had to help take care of her." It was a simple lie that explained her absence without raising questions. Taeho nodded sympathetically and turned his attention back to the professor's lecture. If only he knew that her grandmother was actually a massive alien warlord who had begged for mercy before she executed him in an arena beneath Proxima Station. As Professor Kyung explained the theoretical limits of quantum communication, Yuna listened to an encrypted message through her hidden earpiece. The Galactic Enforcement Council had a new contract for her, a corrupt human politician who was selling Earth's defense codes to hostile alien governments. The target was Senator James Mitchell, a respected member of the Global Defense Committee who had served in government for 20 years. His public image was that of a dedicated public servant, but intelligence reports showed he had been secretly meeting with agents from the Draconian Empire. The bounty was 30 million credits, and the mission was classified as urgent. If the Draconians obtained Earth's defense codes, they could launch a surprise attack that would overwhelm the planet's orbital defenses. Yuna sketched what looked like random doodles in her notebook margins, but were actually floor plans of Senator Mitchell's heavily guarded mansion in the Swiss Alps. She would need to plan her approach carefully, as killing a human politician on Earth would be much more complicated than hunting alien criminals in distant star systems. "Miss Park, can you explain how quantum entanglement might be used for practical communication?" Yuna looked up to find Professor Kyung staring at her expectantly. The entire class had turned to watch her answer, including Taeho, who gave her an encouraging smile. Quantum entanglement creates a connection between particles that allows them to affect each other instantly regardless of distance, she replied in her usual quiet voice. "If we could control this effect, we could send information faster than light without using traditional radio waves." "Excellent," Professor Kyung said with approval. "You clearly understand the concept well." If only he understood how well she really knew the practical applications of such technology. The class continued for another hour while Yuna planned her next hunt. Senator Mitchell would be attending a climate summit in Geneva next week, which would provide the perfect opportunity to eliminate him without suspicion. A simple accident during his morning jog through the mountain trails would solve the problem permanently. When the lecture ended and students began packing their bags, Taeho approached her desk. "Would you like to study together for next week's exam?" he asked hopefully. "I could use help with the quantum mechanics problems." Yuna gave him her usual shy smile. "I would like that, but I might have to visit my family again soon. Another mission, another hunt, another chance to protect humanity from threats they would never know existed." The galaxy's deadliest hunter picked up her backpack and walked quietly out of the classroom, already planning her next kill.